right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Freedom Path Investors podcast. Today we have a treat. We have, I think she goes by the Cash Flow Queen.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ROI chick, whichever one. That works too.
I like ROI check. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm branding that.
Yeah, I like it.
But for most people, Kristina Aguilera. Thanks for coming on.
Welcome.
Fellow St. Louisan here. And, we've kind of run into you a few times, and I think we got a deal going on with you, right?
Two?
Two?
Yeah.
Okay, well, perfect timing.
I think that was part of the negotiation.
Yeah, it was.
Yes. Did we write it into the
this
contract?
deal if you do the podcast.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm down. This is a great deal.
Yeah. Sweetheart deal.
Man, I should have got a coffee with you. It's not even noon yet, but
It's my first one.
Wow, when do you wake up?
8. I'm
8?
not a morning person.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So I go late nights.
Okay.
You must not have kids.
I don't.
No.
Yeah.
But usually when my boyfriend has grandkids, so he's young, like he started early, and so he has a 3-year-old grand.
Okay.
And he's 43.
I was
Okay.
gonna say there might be an age difference there.
13
Okay.
years.
Okay.
And I'm 30. I'll be 30 next month. But he has a
Yay.
grandson that's 3, and whenever he stays over, he doesn't get up much earlier, like maybe 7:30.
Really?
Wow.
Not too bad.
Yeah, I'm like 7 o'clock. So myself.
That's good.
Nothing too crazy. I just have one kid though, so it's easy.
I just have one.
Yeah.
Put him back in the bed.
So, Kristina, how did you get into real estate?
So my background is in insurance. So I just always was in sales or some capacity of managing sales. And I got my MBA in entrepreneurship, and I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go into with that. And then I was managing some sales agents, and I was like, yeah, this can't be life. I was like overworking. I was probably working almost like 70 hours a week, managing other people, helping them build their insurance agencies for farmers.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I need to start like looking at what I want to do with my life. So I went to this like weekend seminar, and now like I wish I remember what it was, but this was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And they talked about Forex and like real estate and all this stuff, and I was like, they basically like enticed. It was Rich Dad that was there, and they enticed you for like a 3-day weekend with a tablet, and I was like, yo, worst case scenario, I got a tablet.
There you go.
I mean, it wasn't even like a
It's like a time.
tablet.
It's like a time sales pitch.
I'm like, yeah, timeshare.
Timeshare. Yeah, exactly. It's like get a
I
tablet.
was like, you get a tablet, so worst case scenario. So that's kind of what started it, and then on that weekend, I spent $90,000, all on credit cards.
Holy crap!
That was the program night. Wow.
Yeah, so it was $70,000. That was the biggest one that they had, and then
Not
I
big
added
en-
on.
not-
Not big enough.
Not big enough.
Let's go bigger. So what happened was I spent $70,000. That was like the initial investment, and then within like a month, a couple weeks from then, I spent another $20,000 on like a mentor and all this stuff.
Wow. That didn't even come with a mentor for 70 grand?
How quickly did you regain that investment?
I think it was obviously because I still had to cover my living expense. So all this happened. So I invested in that. I had just taken a job at Wells Fargo like during this transition because I was like, I wasn't happy, like, period. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and like get my license to sell securities and see if I like that. And because I'm just naturally a salesperson, so I was like, oh, I'll just try something else. And I went to Wells Fargo, and I was so focused on real estate. Like, I was so obsessed with it, so consumed with it, that I couldn't even pass my Series 66. Like, these people paid for me to go to Charlotte for extra training. Like, they wanted me to work there so bad. And I was so consumed with real estate that I couldn't even focus. Like, I passed the first test, which was a 7, but, like, my 66, I literally failed, like, 3 times.
And that's basically just so that you could sell securities through Wells Fargo.
Correct,
Okay.
Yeah, at the cost center downtown.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, but yeah, I mean, so I got laid off.
Sure.
So now, I get laid off, and I'm like having to pay for my living expenses on these credit card bills, which have super high interest rates. So
Yeah.
I would say, it took me about 2 years to like pay it off, because I was like using the money that I was making from wholesale fees, to pay credit cards and my living expenses before I could completely pay it off.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was about 2 years, I think.
So in the middle of this job with Wells Fargo and everything, had you started applying, what you were learning and wholesaling?
Yeah.
And
So that's the funny part. But I did so it's like you get 7 or 9 classes, right? So it's like marketing is one of the classes. all these different. Jason used to teach one of the classes.
Yeah.
He used to teach marketing.
Right.
So foreclosure, like all these different classes. So I did the wholesaling one, the marketing one, and foreclosure strategies. So that's like what I started with.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to these like networking events. They're called symposiums. And I would ask people like, oh, how many deals have you done? And they would be like, oh, none. And I got freaked out. I was like, I cannot like I don't have the opportunity. Like these people still have jobs. Like I don't have the opportunity to like just keep coming to these things and not doing any deals.
Right.
So I just started having buyer's remorse and wondering if this was all going to work. Or...
No, I actually never had buyer's remorse. Yeah. I literally just came home after Orlando. We went to Orlando. I came back from Orlando and I started door knocking.
Okay.
Like foreclosures.
Like immediately.
I was like, I can't afford whatever these people have going, like where they can float these credit card payments and stuff. Like I don't have that advantage. So I just literally
it has to work. Yeah, it can't fail. Yeah.
I didn't have an option at that point.
Right.
So yeah, I don't really ever think that I had buyer's remorse because I was just so convinced that it was gonna work.
Yeah.
Not because of like the education or what I got, but just like my own self. Like I was so focused on making it happen that it didn't really matter, I guess.
I had a very similar start. I joined a program similar. I thought it was one of the most expensive ones, but you beat me on it. But I mean, everybody always ask me, do you regret doing that? You know, did they rip you off? Like if I didn't make that commitment or with financial commitment, I would not have committed myself to doing the work. You know, I was doing it part-time. I thought it was going to be a side hustle. And then I quickly realized like, I want to do this business. So,
I always agree with that. And like people always do ask me that same thing. Like, do you regret doing that? And I always say like, maybe that's what it took for me, but maybe for you, it's a $500 investment. Like maybe at where you are in your life, like I had invested in education. Like I had an MBA, like since I was 17, I've been paying for my education. So to me, like maybe a bigger ticket item is what I needed, but maybe for someone who hasn't done that or doesn't need that, maybe $500 is enough for them. $2,000, $5,000.
You got to look at it like an education, not a get rich quick scheme, you know? So
it's whatever gets you going, I think.
And no one could take that away from you. That's the thing that I always say. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't everything that I needed because every day I learned more things and I didn't learn how to run numbers like as well as I did like actually doing the deals and stuff.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like it's what put me in the position. Like it exposed me.
Yeah.
So know what real estate investing was.
Yeah, I got you in the game.
So you started off door knocking, you said. How long did it take you to get a deal from that? Or was it door knocking that got you your first deal, or did you do something else?
So it was door knocking. So with Rich Dad, this was like when PropStream was like on a CD. So they would give you like a CD and
funny.
You would put it on your computer.
Yeah.
And like the back end software is completely different. Like it's the same data, but it was like a lag in it, you know? So I'm sure like the foreclosure list that I would get, it would be like tomorrow.
Urgency, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't like how it is now where
it's
you have like
AOL.com, you got to do CD every time.
Yeah, I need to find this computer because I know it's somewhere. And so I would pull this list and then I would also like handwrite yellow letters. That was like one of the marketing techniques that they taught, which you can find on YouTube everywhere now.
Right.
So I literally pulled a list and I remember, so I went, it was like the house was at the back of Blackjack, like in the really nice Florissant Park. It's like this really big house. So I get there, I drive up in my Altima that I still drive now. And I drive up to the house and I door knock and the guy answers the door and I just tell him, I'm like, hey, I don't even remember, but I said something like, I know you're about to lose your house.
Oh, nice.
And I can help you. Like I can buy this house. And he was like, he knew what was happening. So he's like, actually, I applied to get a loan for my 401k to pay the arrears. And I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. I obviously did not know at this point that you could do that. I was like, yeah. He's like, but I'll sell a house in the county for $10,000. And I was like, bet, I'm buying it.
So he had a different house. Okay.
Is it still available?
I bought it for $10,000.
That was your first deal, Castle Point?
First deal.
Oh, wow.
$10,000. I made $3,000 assignment fee on that deal. And I remember when I first got it under contract and I started shopping around, people were like, no one invests in Castle Point. Like, no one buys anything in Castle Point.
So anybody not local in St. Louis, Castle Point's a notorious neighborhood where most investors are told to stay away from. And it's very hard to make deals work just because the values aren't there.
Yeah, so the values are low. There's a lot of vacant properties. The rents are low. There's a lot of slab houses there for some reason, because of like the way the flooding, I guess, kind of works. So yeah, I mean, it's what most people would consider like a war zone or a D-class neighborhood. And
you said it, not me.
Yeah, I know, that's why I said it. So I personally hold about 6 rental properties today in Castle Point.
Really? Okay.
Yep. So I own one on Prince, 2 on Barron, 1 on Viscount, and another one I can't remember.
So what have you learned from investing in Castle Point?
And I think it's kind of more so my strategy per se. So my strategy is more so on cash flow.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily look at the value of the property, because I don't refinance. How I take down my deals is 100% cash or long-term private money. So it's based on 100% cash flow income minus expenses and what the net is.
What's your cap rate you're shooting for?
So usually 16% return on investment is where my numbers are. So on that Marcus unit, obviously that's in North City, and that area, that part is, still under development, and there's still growth and opportunity in those areas, and that those units will only rent for about $550, $600 a door. So that the goal on that one is about 23%, and that's basically what we hit with those numbers on rehab and stuff. So that's a 4 unit that I'm buying from you guys.
Yay!
Yeah, that needs like a full rehab, like the outside. The tuck pointing is good on the building, so like the structure is good, but it has like some mold and some plaster issues and stuff.
Yeah.
But it'll be a great building, especially for some transitional housing. I think that's kind of going to be my play with that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to talk about that some more, because I mean, we've traditionally stayed away from North City, but we've expanded our marketing reach and we get these leads. So it's like, there's got to be a way to do something with it, monetize it. So
there's a market.
There is a market.
You're buying there. I'm glad to see people are trying to turn it around in that area. So
we actually had a higher bid for that house, and we actually ended up selling it to you. So
don't say that. He's probably watching.
He probably is, yeah.
I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, and when it comes to those kind of deals, is that there's a market for everything. And what I usually try to tell wholesalers is that you just have to find who your buyers are, and it doesn't matter where you market at. Yeah, you're not going to have a surplus of buyers. Like, let's say you get something in Florissant right now, it's like a bidding war, right? I just bought a flip. I closed on a flip today or yesterday. I don't know who else was looking at it. I know of one hedge fund because him and I actually talked about it, and he was like, "We could never pay that much." And like, to me, the deal was a no-brainer. I paid $125 for the deal.
What was the ARV, if you don't mind?
See, that's the thing. Like, it's changing every day.
Yeah.
So conservatively, 175.
Yeah. Okay.
That's conservatively.
Mm-hmm.
What am I gonna list it for? I think like 190.
Nice.
Conventional.
God,
so a house
crazy market.
literally on the same street went up before we closed.
Mm-hmm.
So mine's a 3.2. This is a 5.2. But they went on the market for $250, and it's already under contract after like 2 days.
Oh my god.
Oh wow. Where's this at?
Florissant on Cordova.
This is in Florissant.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Halls Ferry in Lindbergh.
Yep. That's nice here.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice, but I mean,
the values.
crazy.
But 2 years ago, I could have said that's probably 130, 140 house best. You know? Like,
I mean, what's crazy is I literally did a rehab at the end of last year on Wellington, and I got screwed with appraisal. Like, the house appraised FHA for $165, and that was a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath with a fully finished basement.
Nah, God.
So it's like, the market's ever changing.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's one of my biggest things with wholesalers is like, as a wholesaler, it's so important. I think that's what made me like had such a big advantage at the beginning, was that I started to think like a landlord, and I started to think like a rehabber, right? Like, how are you running your numbers? What is it that you're looking for? And getting their feedback. Like, don't, when someone's like, oh, I'm not interested, or, they give you an offer, like, don't get insulted by it. Ask, like, what number did you put on rehab? Maybe I missed something.
yeah.
maybe I can go negotiate. Like, stop taking everything so personal, because at the end of the day, you're trying to make money in the rehab.
One of the things I learned from that endeavor is that you have like kind of, I think, like quadrants of different kinds of buyers, right? And so I'll just split in these two of a BRRRR buyer versus a cash flow buyer. And when you run your numbers for a BRRRR buyer, it's going to be different than you run your numbers for just a straight cash flow buyer. So in those like CD neighborhoods, you have a lot more cash flow buyers. So you like the comps that you see on there, that's basically what they're paying, because there's no, people aren't moving in to living there. It's cash flow buyers that are purchasing them. So that's a different set of numbers than a BRRRR buyer, where you look at the ARV minus a certain percentage minus the rehab budget. So it's just,
and you're looking at cash on cash returns usually, because they're leveraging a bank or they're going to refinance and pull out like as much equity. And then you also have to worry about the house appraising, right? So you do have to have these comps, where a cash flow buyer isn't going to be doing those things.
Nope. Yep, you're absolutely right.
So I know we jumped way ahead here on your story. So that stemmed off of your first deal in Castle Point. So how long were you doing this on the side as a hustle before you went full time? Oh, so
I never went back to work.
You went to that event because you were laid off right then.
Yeah, so I got laid off. After like a year of wholesaling, like full time, I was closing at a title company, and I took on a position to be the business development director.
Okay.
So the strategy behind that was to learn the paperwork. I wanted to understand more about subject twos. I wanted to understand like deeds of trust, notes, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And so I had to get my title license. I've processed files. I've literally worked every position at a title company. I've written policies. That's why a lot of times, like when wholesalers have issues in the local market, they'll reach out to me and they're like, hey, what can I do with this? I'm doing a deal with them right now. And we have like liens from a nursing home. So it's like, that's like a whole nother beast, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, what do we have to do to get this removed? I mean, it's like a whole research thing. So we did mutually release from the contract, but we're still working on it actively because the lady's in a nursing home. But there's all these strategies. So yeah, I did go and I got a job. It was one of the best things because I'm not originally from St. Louis. Yeah. So it's actually how I met a lot of real estate agents, a lot of people, because I was able to wine and dine them on the title company's money, basically. Nice. Like I was taking them out to lunch, I was going to networking events because I didn't know anybody. I'm not from here. So, and it also like gave me, the owner of that title company, he invested in North City, and I met a contractor that was doing a lot of work in North City, and that's where my passion for North City came, because I saw that a lot of people weren't investing in the city, in North City specifically. A lot of people invest on the south side, but not necessarily on the north side. And I think it was just like the misconception that people just didn't understand North City. Like they've just been told prerogative or narrative that they've never personally seen. So it's just something that I've just taken a big liking to. I see the impact that it's making, the resources that we get to bring. So it's fun.
That's really powerful.
I guess the biggest struggle for us, like we're BRRRR buyers, we want to pull all of our money back out, and like when you're depending on an appraisal, that's a big roll of the dice if that's your investing method. So educate me a little bit here. Like you don't plan on pulling your money back out ever? Never. It's going to be long-term investment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to raise a lot of money to do that.
Yeah. So I raise all my stuff's like private money. I bring a lot of money from Israel, and then I do smaller investments with like correctional officers, a lot of doctors. I have a lot of friends, like I have friends that are authors and stuff, and so they'll put stuff in like a self-directed IRA or just rate, they just have capital that they're putting into some of the properties, and so I'll partner with them, or they just privately lend. It just really depends.
What's the lending kind of? You have to go into the exact numbers necessarily, but like kind of what's the structure? Is it like 30-year note or like?
Yeah, so 15. Usually it's 15 because the price points are lower. Okay. So the price point's a little bit higher. Then I will stretch it out 30 just to capture the cash flow as much as possible.
Sure.
And obviously no prepayment penalties. So I can always pay more. But usually I'm at long-term private money at 6%.
How did you go about finding all these people? I mean, you went from wholesaling Castle Point, and then you're like, oh, I'm just gonna keep these properties. Okay.
Wholesaling.
So you just found them, you wholesale it to them, and then they wanted to deploy their capital and use it more. And
yeah. So I mean, here's the thing, right? A lot of times the struggle is that you have lack of good property management, or that you have to basically manage your property manager right?
Yeah.
And that was one of the struggles that I had when we were first building the portfolio. Was I tried like several different property managers, and I just felt like I was managing them, which is fine. Especially if you have a smaller portfolio, it's okay because it's not a lot. But at this point I had 60 properties, and I had to draw the line when I got a bid that was like $5,000, and then it was really $15,000 at the end of the turn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a huge difference, and you just pulled it off of my rents. Like, I didn't approve this. And so that was like my big, I'm not really in control.
Yeah.
So what I did was I hired a virtual assistant, and I started bringing my property management in-house. So my first employee was a $4 virtual assistant in the Philippines. And she would handle like my maintenance stuff, and I was managing some of the stuff at this point until I could figure out what the dynamic of this company would actually look like, or if it was something that I wanted to do long term.
So what's your in-house property management look like now? Do you have your own maintenance crew and everything? And
Yeah. So right now, I am hiring for a full-time maintenance person that I'm willing to pay.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy because like I'm willing to pay someone $25 an hour and give them a company car, and I still can't find anyone that like
really
is decent enough.
Yeah, we just started that search as well, and I don't know, got a couple referrals, but.
So I've been just using vendors, like our vendors that do our maintenances, our turns. And so we'll just like kind of set them up that way. And then I have some evening, like a guy who's like union that I'm like, I don't think I can say that.
He used to be union.
Yeah,
he used to be.
He used to be union.
There's
and
no names.
So yeah, so it's like 30. I pay him for evenings and weekends just like $30 flat.
Okay.
And so I mean, it just kind of like works out. I just like that we don't have to like I don't like micromanaging people.
So
that's like one of my biggest things. Like, I don't like to constantly have to tell you how to do your job. Like, this is your job.
I love doing that. That's the
it's
best thing in the world, isn't it? We love that, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I have to tell you how to do your job,
You hired the wrong person. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's just some things that are just like, that's what I'm paying you for.
Yeah. Well, this is intriguing to me. So you have a virtual assistant that takes these calls, and then does he kick them off to the? Yeah, go ahead, please.
So the way the company is set up right now, so I have a field manager who's on salary, and my goal for him is to basically sit in the COO role.
And how many units do you have, real quick?
220.
220. Okay, gotcha.
Actually, I think I'm at like 230. I have to look at it.
Wow.
But something in that range. So he's salaried, and he basically does all the site visits, manages the crews, makes sure that we're completing projects, attends inspections, all that kind of stuff.
High level project manager.
High level.
He runs a business.
He runs the business.
Yeah. Okay.
Right now I'm still managing some of the aspects of it until I can fully onboard him. So he worked for us at another company, and then now I just transitioned into putting him back on. But he's been managing apartments for the last 4 years.
Nice.
Okay.
So that's that. As far as the back office goes, I have 4 virtual assistants all in the Philippines. One is my main girl. She's been with me for 2 years, and she manages everybody. Like, she tells everybody what to do, basically. One girl's 100% maintenance, so she does all maintenance, inbound calls, and managing the vendors, make sure that they're sending in their billing. She reports it. I have a full-time bookkeeper who pays all the vendors, who does all the billing, who manages the budgets, because we have about 30 rehabs going at a time.
It's nuts.
And then, so it's just like keeping the budget together, like everything that's spent at Home Depot for every single property, everything labor-wise, so that we don't go over budget. And then I have one person who is 100% on investor communication. So just rehab updates.
With all your lenders? Yeah.
All the lenders, all the investors.
Okay.
Wow, that's impressive. How long did it take you to build that out to where it is now?
2 years.
2 years? That's a good.
The portfolio and the company.
So in 2 years, you've acquired 220 units?
Yeah.
Impressive.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no joke.
It's ridiculous.
Hats off to you, man. That's great.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm thankful, like, just to keep, like, it's been a lot of pure hustle, to be honest with you. And a lot of it was 100% me. Like I gained a ton of weight because I literally was stressed out and I was doing everything and I wasn't delegating. Even though I had people on payroll, like I was still not giving them what they needed. So over like the last 9 months is like when I really focused on like
It's a lot of pressure.
giving people, and giving like trusting people. That's like one of the biggest things. Like when you're building a company, is that you have to trust.
Were you struggling like just with trying to manage everything and not delegating? Is that where the stress built up? Or?
Yeah, for sure. So it was just like more of a control thing. So I'm a Taurus and I'm super alpha female, and so it was definitely like a control thing. It was my baby, like, and I didn't want anybody to mess up, even if it wasn't working. It's kind of like, I don't know, like any kind of trauma or toxic relationship that you're in, even if it's not working, like you're still trying to like keep control of things. And I realized that when I started like letting other people take on things, one, they were doing it better than I was.
Because they're focused on it. Yeah.
Because I was only giving a little piece of myself to it, you know? Yeah.
Was there any particular moment or point where you decided you had to make this change? Was there something
I think it was a lot of different moments along the space where like a lot of conversations, one with my boyfriend where he's like, you're stressing yourself out. Like you have people on payroll that you're not giving stuff to and you're doing stuff, right? It was a decision, like I'm in the flips now, but it was a decision where like, this isn't the best use of my time. Like it's not the best space for me because I realized that it took a while to realize that, especially with contractors frustrate me because I'm like, you told me you're going to do something, we agreed to it, and you still can't do it. Like this, I don't understand why this is so like difficult. Because when I agree to things, I'm good. Yeah, like that's, and so with that, but now like with a process in place of like walkthroughs every single week, punch list, a final punch list 4 days before a deadline, so that if there's nothing that, you know, if you're missing stuff, you have a full punch list before you're even walking out of here.
Yeah.
So we're not waiting till, you know, a lot of times what happens is like the deadline's Friday, you're punch listing on Friday, they're not getting paid because there's a ton of stuff on there. Now they're mad.
Nobody's happy.
Yeah, no one's happy. Yeah. And so putting like some systems in place, like I just started looking at the things that weren't working, that were making everybody inefficient, that were frustrating me. And I'm like, okay, there has to be an easier way to do this kind of thing. Yeah. But it was a lot of conversations and a lot of trial and error where I'm like, this isn't working. This isn't working.
So by opening yourself up the way you have and getting the business to actually, the property business to actually run itself, are you able now to acquire more? Or like, what are you doing with that free time?
So I love acquisition.
I know you
do. So that's like, honestly, that's actually one of the things that was very frustrating for me was because I'm like, I can't buy more because of all this.
Yeah, bottlenecks and stuff. Yeah.
Bottlenecks in the business, like just me being frustrated with like contractors and stuff. So I just like went on a hiring spree, like a firing spree. I'm like, okay, obviously you're not a best fit. Like I have to punch list you 100 times to get the end result. Like this isn't worth my time. We're just not a good fit for each other. I can refer you to someone else who has more patience. Like I like you, but we're not good for each other.
I don't think that's how the conversation went. But
honestly, I literally just fired an employee yesterday. And I'm like, you're just not good under a structure, but you're great at what you do. So I'm going to refer you to other investors who you don't need to work for them, but you can work as a consultant.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, like you have to watch people where they are and be like, okay, I'm not utilizing to the best of my capability and your capability. Like I'm setting you up for failure because you're not good with structure.
Yep.
But you can get me a lot of money that's in arrears. And that's what my employee was doing for me. But I'm like, you can't be in the office. Like you have other external things that are causing other employees problems. So let's part ways here, but you can still do this at a commission or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but acquisitions is like my heart and soul. Like I love it so much. I love working with wholesalers. Educating them, like helping them, like these are the deals that I want to buy. And you guys know, like we do one walkthrough, I do one walkthrough and I'm ready. Like I don't have to worry about a bunch of stuff. There's not a long inspection. I don't need a contractor to come through. I don't need anything. Yeah. So one, a lot of wholesalers want to work with me. They want to bring me their deals. But I love the wholesaler and seller conversation.
So I will say that when we first walked a property in Pine Lawn, a couple weeks ago. What I like about you is that we can assign it to you and we can trust you. And I did a little like ask someone that's a mutual friend of ours, like, "Hey, is she good to go?" And he was like, "Yeah, she's good to go. Like, don't worry, her words are bond." So it's so good, and that's why I'll just go back to Marcus. That's why we took a little bit less, right? Because we already did business with this gentleman. Maybe we should have. I don't know, but who cares? Like, you're here now. That's awesome. But we knew we can give you the assignment. And I would say anything in St. Louis, correct me if I'm wrong, but anything in St. Louis over like 5,000 or 7,000, seems like the buyers will start to be like, well,
So crazy.
yeah, they'll balk at it and they're like, well, you shouldn't make that much money or whatever, and try to pull the contract, renegotiate. That's happened to me a couple times. So it's just if you're a wholesaler out there and you have a deal, send it to her. She's going to make sure that you guys should do the assignment.
Worry about that. Yeah. So one of the biggest things, and we can talk about this because I mean, obviously, like people always ask, like, where is it that you assign or don't assign, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes when double closing in St. Louis is very cheap. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily like in other markets where when you assign, you have to do like a transfer tax and like all these things, right? So our fees are fairly cheap even if we want to double close. When I double close is like it's not really to hide my fee, to be honest with you, but a lot of people don't realize that when you assign and you have a big assignment fee, that the buyers expose that amount of money on title insurance. Like that money's not insurable, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you don't get any insurance on that because it's an invoice. It's not part of the purchase price.
Right.
So you only get money on the actual purchase price of the house. So sometimes, like even if you are, you can still double close for yourself, right? So like let's say that I took on something and then I can just double close to cover myself on insurance, which is actually what I'm doing with Marcus.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm actually, to get insurance, I'm actually double closing. So I'm paying the fees, you guys aren't, but I choose that for myself.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. So, but that's something that I know, right? Like I know this.
I never heard of that, no.
Yeah, so any assignment fee is not insurable. So let's say that something were to happen, you'd basically be, as the buyer, as an end buyer, you'd be asked out that.
So if somebody's buying a property for $100,000, but we assigned it, we bought it for, say we marked it up $20,000. Mm-hmm. That house burns down. They're not going to get the full.
No. So it's not property insurance. This is title insurance.
Title insurance. Okay.
Yeah. This is on the title insurance side.
So if something came up, right?
Right.
Then okay.
So that's it. I mean, and it's rare that it happens, but you do have to think about it, right? Because it has happened before. So let's say that that title company didn't clear a $200,000 mortgage on it. You really only have insurance for your initial investment. Your actual purchase price.
Not the invoices and stuff like that. So it's just like anything else on that Alta statement, right? The title insurance fees, the assignment fee, it's all a fee. It's not the purchase price. Gotcha.
So, but yeah, so I mean, and that's just something that most people don't know. But as far as assignments, to me personally, like whenever I did it, it was more so like at the $20,000 mark.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys are, and here's the thing, right? The cool thing about wholesaling is that you get to pick who you want to work with.
Yes.
So if someone's giving me shit about my fees, like I'm probably just not gonna bring you anything else. Like there's just I'm really big on relationships.
Yep.
And ease and convenience. Mm-hmm. Like those are my three big things when it comes to wholesaling. Period. So like if I feel resistance or you always trying to like lowball me, get it under contract, and then like lowball me, it's probably only gonna happen 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
Max. And so as a buyer, like these are the things that wholesalers like. At the end of the day, the buyers are 1 in a million. Wholesalers are, the buyers are 1 in, like there's so many buyers and there's so many wholesalers. So you get to pick who you want to work with.
A lot of buyers might not understand what it actually takes to get a wholesale deal and the time and the marketing and the follow up.
On the MLS.
So
go ahead.
When I got into the game, there was like an unspoken rule or myth, I guess, that if you're trying to make over $5,000 on a wholesale in St. Louis, you're greedy and gouging people. Like, okay, well, do you know what it takes for a marketing campaign these days? Like
more than $5,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess getting back to my point there, like, if somebody new we're working with, we're probably going to double close it no matter what, just because we want to know they're good, they're going to close, and they understand how we do this. Mm-hmm. I guess it just all comes down to trust if you want to assign versus double close, really.
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing is when it comes to like the assignment and stuff is just that the end buyer can see your fee.
Yeah.
And some people, unfortunately, like there are buyers that they're like, oh, you're making just as much as I am. And at the end of the day, you offered that price. Like you said that you wanted to buy it for this. So you obviously ran your numbers. That has nothing to do with what I'm making. Like stop
You were just
counting
saying that
my
about
pockets.
somebody did that to you a couple of years ago. They pulled the plug on after you showed them the assignment.
Yeah, so I sent them he's like, send your boilerplate assignment fee over. I did that. It wasn't even that much, but he came back and renegotiate down $5,000 after that. It was just kind of tying your hands. What I'll say is that I hate using this cliche because everyone say it's such a crazy market right now and people are paying crazy prices for things. If you're a wholesaler, maybe you're new and you don't know this industry that much, like don't talk to us, Kristina. We can help you out and get the thing sold. Please don't get held hostage by a buyer. No need to in this market.
No. And the same thing, like I think the same thing with buyers. Like you get to pick what wholesalers you work with, and as wholesalers, you get to pick what buyers you want to work with, or what other wholesalers you want to JV with. Like
now, I will say, if you're a wholesaler and you try to rake someone over the barrel, over like 500 to 1,000, try to jack them up, like, and you try to send an assignment, they're probably gonna mess with you. Don't do that.
To avoid it, you could just raise private money and take it down. Especially in this market, if you take it down, clean it out, spruce it up, knock the ugly off, like you're opening yourself up to so many more buyers.
Yeah. So this house in Florissant, the one on Cordova, so the rehab on that house is gonna be. I was running the numbers on my way over here. So I got $15,000 in rehab for private money, and I think we're gonna be like right at $12,000 or so.
Nice.
And literally, like it's great. It's just paint, like
Some flooring.
We're gonna do no flooring.
Wow.
No flooring. New garage door. I'm adding fascia because there's no fascia on the house at all. I'm doing a little bit of landscaping. Paint is my biggest expense here. And I just got the paint bed. I didn't know y'all spent that much money on paint.
What?
I like my people. I mean, on my rentals, I barely spend money on paint.
I think we're like $4 a square foot. Right?
That's ludicrous. This guy did $3,700. I'm like, what are we? That didn't even include the basement.
So that's baseboards, doors, ceilings, walls.
For how big a house? How big is the house?
Probably like
1,200. 15.
Yeah, 14.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I mean, that sounds about right. That doesn't even include the basement though.
We just paid $5,500 for a 1,600
For paint?
1,600 square foot house, and it was just
I can't.
just the walls and the.
I mean, this is the price. You cannot spend these prices on rentals, especially cash flow rentals. Like that is ludicrous, ridiculous, crazy. But I knew that I don't want to babysit anyone.
Yeah.
Right? And we're talking about putting it on the market. So the lines have to be cut. I don't want to babysit anybody on that. But man, that's crazy. I was like, what? $4,000 for paint?
You'll probably get more than $4,000 back in the investment on that.
Oh,
like,
no,
you're gonna like.
I mean, that's all I'm doing is really paint. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I love those deals. We just did one like that. It's closing next month in Oakville, and that's going to be one of our best ones yet.
Yeah.
Wholetailing. That's where it's at.
So
man.
what kind of marketing are you guys doing now?
Whoa, you want to say?
Yeah, so we are doing a lot of direct mail and online ads. We've kind of shifted. Like in the beginning, we were doing mostly texting and cold calling, and we were just having a conversation with our mastermind this morning. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it's going to be going by the wayside pretty soon. There's going to be big crackdowns.
The texting
coming up here in the summer, they're saying. So we're still doing it, but the success rate's been a lot lower. So we're going to do it until they shut it down and be ready to pivot. We already are. So
and that's a good thing. So we mostly cold call. Yeah. And then we mostly voicemail drop. So those are like our two techniques. Is that and then direct to seller stuff.
Yeah.
And as far as list goes, most of it that I market to is mostly retired landlords. Because that's like that's my space that I like to be in. But a lot of like warm, like land, like that lead on Cordova, that was literally an agent that would like just send me the seller's information. She was like, I'm not sure what they're trying to do. I went on a listing appointment. He's talking to investors, so see if you can get it. And then I just paid her.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we got a couple deals in that way too.
And so that's just like, those are just those warm connections that you just like kind of make over time that don't pay off like the day you set that relationship up, but it's something like if you stay focused on that and you message, because I'll like text her all the time, like, hey girl, do you need anything? Is there anything I can do for you? Like that's the kind of relationship you have to keep those kind of relationships alive.
Those have been some of our best deals. I mean, you have to be letting everybody know what you're doing, you know.
How many, like, as far as a ratio goes, how many deals are coming from referrals like that versus how many are coming from like your marketing efforts?
So when I say referrals, I'm gonna put wholesalers in there too.
Sure.
So it's right now we're like 50-50.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So right now we're 50-50 buying from wholesalers and then generating from our own marketing.
Nice.
Our rental portfolio breaks down like that: 50% from wholesalers, 50% from us.
Yeah. So
that's one of the cool things about marketing for yourself, and like you kind of had asked me that earlier, was how do you know, like, are you gonna flip something, are you gonna wholesale it, like what is it? And one, I think once you see enough deals, you get to figure out like, oh, this is definitely something that fits our buy box, and getting very, very clear on what that buy box looks like.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you're actually trying to buy? What are your returns? Like, I can spit out what my goal is.
So you could probably keep your direct seller marketing pretty low since you have a very specific niche, it sounds like. So
yeah, and then I still wholesale.
Yeah.
I wholesale, so it just really depends. But yeah, I mean, we're dialing about 800 people a day. We're doing 800 calls a day.
What are you doing? So you got this rental portfolio of like 220 to 230, right? It's cash flowing at 15-16% average. That's a lot of money coming in. What are you doing with your wholesale?
If everybody pays.
Well, yeah. Right. Projected money versus actual income is different. But so what do you do? What are you using your wholesale fees for?
So paying taxes. No, I'm just kidding. So
yeah.
So what I do with the wholesale fees is I'll buy rentals cash. So that's one of the big things with that. The rental portfolio pretty much manages it itself. It pays for the management company. And as far as like the money that goes, I travel. That's like one of my favorite things. So I spend money on that. And I didn't really know until like 6 months ago what my real end result was. Like what my end goal was. I was like, I'm just working. I don't know. I'm hustling. Like I'm just building a team. I don't really know. Like I like awesome. It. I really like it. And so after talking to like a couple people and like one of my really, really good friends, I'm like, okay, in 5 years, I just want to like pivot to like just do private money. Like I want to be the lender. And yeah, so that's the end goal.
That's awesome.
Love it.
So no more hustling.
Make a shit ton of money. Yeah, I'll probably just like right now. So I've been doing some like small mentoring, like just group coaching on like deal analyzing, helping people like learn the cash flow strategy, like whether they're wholesaling or investing themselves.
Yeah.
And so I really like that. Like it's one of my things that I love to do.
I was down in Florida. I met a guy named Bernard. Bernard lives in Brittany, France, half the year, and then in Florida half the year. He spends, that's where he lives, but he travels the entire time. All he does is lend money, and he just goes on excursions his whole entire life. That's his life. And he goes scuba, he goes to the Antarctic, the North Pole, all these, like he'll show me all these places. Yeah, and he just has a laptop with a satellite connection. Someone says they want money. He has a relationship with them. Wire, done. Makes a crap ton of money by doing that.
That's going to be Kristina in a few years.
That'll be me.
I was wanting to paint that for you.
Scuba diving.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was impressive what he built out. That's for sure.
I mean, and that's like something that, you know, you have to build up your capital a lot first. And like, so that's kind of like what those wholesale fees and stuff is just like building up as much capital as possible, putting into some IRAs, just building as much capital as possible.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up, I follow your social media, and you're always traveling and going to different meetups and seminars or speaking at events. So what's been your return on that? Like, when did you start believing like, you know, putting yourself in a bigger room can really elevate you to a different level?
So for me, I think it was very, very like early on, because that's why like I made that initial investment.
Right.
I think that the biggest thing when it comes to investing in yourself or like investing in relationships, because I'm like super big on relationships, period, is that you have to give. Like you have to come from a place of giving. So a lot of people are always like, oh, like how did you speak at Max's events, or how did you even meet these people, or how did you do anything? Like if anybody goes back to like when Max first started his Facebook group, I was literally, when people would ask questions, I would be answering in the group. Like that's how Max and I built our relationship. was like I was active in helping him like answer people's questions when we were at the capacity where we could or had a little extra time, or like when we were on social media late at night. And that's how that relationship came up. So a lot of times it's like you have to just come from a place of giving, of like helping others. And I mean, I would say it comes back like tenfold. You know, not just from the space of brand recognition or like people knowing who I am or things like that, because I walked the property on my way up here. And the guy was like, you know, every time I put this property out, everybody just tags you, or everybody wants to like, you know, even people out of town are like, oh, send it to Kristina. He's like, I already sent it to her. Like, we just haven't walked it yet because he didn't have access. He was like pre-marketing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, the reason why that is because you have to put yourself out there. Like, people have to know what kind of mission you're after so that they can buy into your vision. Like, what mission, you have to share your mission with people so that they can buy into the big picture and what it does for them. Right? Like, what do you get out of your interaction with me? Like, what is it? What kind of benefit do I bring to you? And once you can establish that, I think that's the real game changer.
Love that. Thank you. That just enlightened my whole day.
That was good.
That.
So you grew so fast, 2 years, 220 plus units. I mean, if you
a
could,
lot of support.
when you got in and you're wholesaling, like, did you see this? Like, this was going to be the path, or when did you first get turned on to like, well, I want to just hold everything now, like the massive passive income?
I didn't.
You couldn't sell it, and you're like, oh shit.
No, I could sell everything. Like, it was never an issue with that. It was more so that I think I just started bringing like massive value to the investors. So like, I was initially just wholesaling to them, and it was a very transactional business. And then eventually something transactional builds into a relationship. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because wholesaling is very transactional, like initially, right? Until you build a relationship with someone. So it was very, very transactional. Then we built like relationships because we were doing consecutive deals together. Even like small things, like when you and I talk, like, oh, we're not gonna be able to close. Like, that's like us building our relationship of communication.
Yeah.
And then, you know, hanging out with people's families, me going to Israel, like meeting their moms, sleeping at like their family houses. Like, that's like the kind of relationship that you want to have with people, where they trust you and you're part of their family, right? And those are things that don't happen overnight. I'll tell you the biggest relationship that I have that has made me the most amount of money. The man's literally like my brother. And our relationship started, I was actually referred to him by a property manager. So just for me to wholesale to him, and because he wanted to flip in St. Louis, he wanted to come back. And he paid the property manager like $5,000 to rehab the unit, and he wired them the money and everything. And he asked me, he's like, hey, I know that the inspection's in a couple days. Do you think that you can swing by just to make sure everything's good to go? Mm-hmm. I got there, nothing is good to go.
That's the worst, man. Holy smokes.
Like, I dreaded that conversation so bad. And this was like in the beginning of our like relationship. And I called him and I'm like, hey, like, this isn't ready. Like, this is not anywhere close to ready. I know inspection's in 2 days. So I started making calls, and I called like the guys that I had working on other projects and stuff. And I'm like, hey, can you guys do this? Blah, blah, blah. My cleaning lady couldn't come. Okay, first of all, I have a cleaning lady at my house, okay? I cleaned the rental myself.
That bad, huh?
That is the relationship that has made me the most money, has introduced me to the most people. And it was that instance where I showed my ass, where he knew that regardless of what happened, that I was going to go to bat, whether it was his money, my money, anybody's money. Because at that point, there was no conversation. I didn't even wholesale him that house. I made no money on that deal. So it was like a conversation where you are proving yourself, basically, of what you're capable, your problem-solving skills. That's how you gain partners. That's how you raise money.
But you didn't do it with that intent. It doesn't seem like you were just doing it to help him. And going back to the giving mindset and all that stuff, like that was your intent. And what happened from that, someone recognized in you, like, oh, this person is going to, you know, make sure things happen, get done. And so, yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
Awesome story. We're coming up on time here. I just had really one kind of big question to wrap things up. So, um, just curious, as a woman in the industry, what kind of struggles did you face early on? I imagine it'd be tough working with contractors in the beginning. So just, talk about that a little bit.
So as far as contractors, I think that that's the biggest hiccup, because most people just expect that you don't know, to be honest. So at the beginning of my career, I really befriended like one main contractor that I would pay him to go on walkthroughs with me and stuff, so that I didn't lose my butt on stuff. And that relationship is like really what taught me a lot about North City. Like he would tell me, he was a roofer as well. And so those are the kind of things that putting yourself in those positions where you're building like good, solid relationships with people that you trust, and that people trust, right? Because if they see a guy, unfortunately, like that's like, I hate saying it, but it's the reality. Like contractors are just contractors. Like they're men, and there's some great contractors that are girls. Which are my favorite. So I have like one, Sheila Vaughn is one of my favorite contractors in St. Louis, and she's a woman, and so I know I don't really have to worry about her, but she plays with boys too. Like she manages guys all day. And so I think it's just being assertive, knowing your stuff so that people know that they can't bypass you. Hiring a field manager and being able to like fire myself from that was probably the biggest relief for me.
Yeah.
Because I just say that they're contractors. Not all of them, but most of them are grown men, children that you have to babysit, and I really hated that.
We're no different.
I'm like, why is this so difficult? And so, but as far as like women, honestly, like on the acquisition side and the disposition side, I feel like I have such a huge advantage. Like people trust me, like sellers trust me, buyers trust me. Private money is way easier to raise, I think. For me, like I think it's just that nurturing side and the fact that I can prove myself. Like I know that regardless, like at the end of the day, if I'm raising any kind of money, like believe me not, like I've had to bring money to a closing table before, because at the end of the day, my private money lender or any investor is never gonna lose. Like I'm gonna take the hit before anybody else does, and they know that. So I think that that's something that you prove over time. Like you don't get to walk into a room and be like
I'll take
you
your
can
money.
demand it.
Yeah.
You can't demand anything from anybody. Right. But I think like as a woman in the industry is that you build like that you get to show that nurturing side of like caring for sellers. And I mean, if we door knock on the same door, like they're probably going to answer the door for me before they're going to answer for a guy. Just from like a safety perspective, just from
I don't know. Jake's got a very nice smile, and
he does have. But he's really hairy.
That's not a joke. She just told the truth.
Another big thing, I think that, and maybe you guys try it on your marketing. I don't know if you guys do this already, but split test with a girl name on your marketing.
I will say this. So our leads manager, Laura, whenever we go on an appointment where she fielded it and all that stuff and set the appointment for us, 9 times out of 10, they have something great to say about her.
Yeah.
And she gets sometimes further along than we do on some conversations because
she warms them up and breaks down that wall for us to come in.
Yeah,
the barrier. So I don't know, try to split test like putting Laura's name on some of your marketing. And if you do like any voicemail jobs or anything like that, if you actually record with a female voice, we found that conversion is like way higher.
Yeah, we do a little bit of that with our voicemails and everything, and I'll try it out on the postcards though. Yeah, awesome. Pro tip of the day. Thank you.
But thank you guys. I appreciate it.
No, this was awesome, Kristina. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure we'll do some more deals. And so what's the end game? How many is there a goal of how many units you want to get to? And
I think I'm gonna hit 300 before the end of this year for sure.
You're gonna get to 500 eventually.
When do you stop? Ever?
I don't have a number. So you asked me earlier, and like not to reroute, but you asked earlier, like, did you set this number? And to be honest with you, like, I feel like at the beginning, if I would have been like, I would have been like 50 doors, and I'm good, I'm chilling, like, I'm living.
Mm-hmm.
I would have cut myself so short on like my possibility of things. So now I do break things down into quarters because I have some kind of like number in place. But I remember even like when I set my first goal of like money in wholesale, I said $10,000 a month. And $10,000 a month is great. That's $120,000 a year. That's a regular job.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's it's above average, but it's $120,000 a
the goals are always changing. That's why I have difficult time like looking at like a 3-year goal. You know, like everything could change in months.
So you just focus on today. I break it down. So I have to make $10,000 every single day. That's just my number in my head. And so if I just focus on that, if I made 20 yesterday, then I got my next 2 days covered.
So I think you can be a private money lender now.
Probably
just thinking that through my head.
So that's what I focus on. But yeah, so yeah. That's what
All right, Kristina, you brought a ton of value today. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, it was
I
awesome.
appreciate you guys.
All right. Yep. Thanks so much.